Greetings, boys and girls, and those who bounce in between. This is Supreme Leader Dankey from the Dankey Kang Free State, where we last left off my neighboring Free State. The guy I'll just call Phil. He was being a total chode and denying me access to the precious steel because all of my tools were horribly rusted and all of my slaves that I was using to mine my quarries, of course, came down with tetanus and died. I didn't even bother moving them to the underwater bunker. I just when Phil launched his missile strike against my free state, totally violated his non-aggression principle. By the way, uh, I just let him wipe the slaves out. I figured, hell, I've got enough wives down here. I can just repopulate with my own slave children. And I'm going to do better this time. No more fucking sweet potatoes. I'm switching straight to opium. Poppy, baby. That's where the real money is to be made in this free market environment. I'm going to get everybody and their mother hooked on this shit, and they are going to keep coming to me as their prime customers. And even if the other free states like band together and try to like totally violate my fucking non-aggression principle and my free market and just like deny me trade, I'll just, dude, I've got a tiny little river, like a little tributary running through my 1 kilometer wide free state, and I'll just start funneling like morphine through in their water supply. I'll get them all hooked, dude. This is the free market at work, people. Spike the water with heroin, and you'll get everybody coming to you for that sweet, sweet dope. So anyway, I mean, that's just the free market at work. But I'm here to educate all of you statist idiots, all of you shills for the MSM, uh, and the big bankers, the globalists. I'm here to tell you guys just how wrong you are. I mean, the libertarian philosophy is as old as America itself, which, as we all know, was founded by the grace of God and in accordance with Judeo-Christian values. Jesus Christ himself said, the free market, the freer the market, the freer the people. That's in the Bible, ladies and gentlemen. And the Bible is directly quoted from Jesus himself. I mean, and the founding fathers knew that. And King George was like trying to fucking totally violate their non-aggression principle and was just totally being a chode. He wanted to get rid of the gold standard, and the founding fathers were having none of that bullshit. They said you can take your namby-pamby English bullshit back to England where you belong, you redcoat bastards. Because we're a society over here, we love freedom. We love fucking freedom, and we love the shit out of liberty. We lube ourselves up with liberty over here in the United States. And the freedom we love most of all is the freedom to own black people as property and use them as slave labor. This freedom, King George. You're just a cuck. You're just a cuck that lives over there in Britain, and you don't know how real men live. The founding fathers were the first chuds, ladies and gentlemen. They wanted freedom, and they were willing to die and fight and send a lot of people to die and fight for that freedom. So, when did I first learn about this weird fucking world of libertarianism? Where did it come from and where is it going? What the fuck is happening to reality? Now, I don't know if we all remember uh this gentleman, but his name is Ron Paul. His name was Robert Paulson. But Ron Paul, he was going to jam it down your throat. Ron Paul was a gynecologist who didn't believe in evolution, ran a racist newsletter for many, many years, published under his name, and by God, he loved his liberty. That's the face of a man who loves liberty probably more than he loves his own children. He's tried many times to run for president, but every time has ended in just total failure because people realize just how batshit he is. He's just an incredible man. An incredible man. Strongly pro-life. Uh, believes states should decide to regulate or deregulate drugs. Big advocate for states' rights. And of course, we come to the newsletter controversy. Um, it wasn't a good look, dog. And Ron Paul, pretty much since then has been not really uh, not really popular anymore. I mean, I guess he is in certain circles, but even his big shill friend Alex Jones of Infowars stopped shilling for him. He turned totally on the Trump train. But that's a different tale for a different time. Young Dankey was first introduced to libertarianism at a very, very young age. It was pretty much the first sort of politics I was ever really introduced to. And the reason why is this dapper gentleman here, Richard Mayberry, who is an economist from what I understand, but he's also a giant libertarian. He is pretty much like the intellectual libertarian, if you could consider libertarianism such a thing. He has many, many books that I have read. I read in school, and the dude, yeah, he is good at sort of selling libertarianism, but I actually like did my due diligence and sort of looked into this stuff. And to his credit, he criticizes the United States and their foreign policy. He criticizes like big capitalists. Um, it's basically his belief that we should go to like this Jeffersonian republic, this totally free market laissez-faire capitalism where the government is shrunken down to the size of a pea and their only real role is to enforce the Constitution and property rights. He's really big about property rights. He thinks that the government should essentially protect other people and their property and then do everything that they agree to do, like in accordance to the Constitution. But at the same time, the guy pitches a philosophy that is so destructive. And, his analysis of socialism is so shallow and panders to sort of right-wing Christian conservatives that it's hard to really throw a guy a bone in that sort of aspect. He's very biased, even though libertarians often claim to be like this sort of logical, sane middle ground between the left and the right. They are entirely on the right. I would place them as very far right. And perhaps in a different fashion than fascism. But ultimately, something like fascism would be the outcome. Something akin to like a modern day feudalism, if you could imagine that. Because I don't know why the libertarians don't seem to understand this, but not everyone is on the same economic rung. And if the government was shrunk down to the size of a pea, that would essentially cripple the working class. They would have no welfare, they would have nothing. They would just be forced to rely on the big capitalists who would most certainly outcompete and just destroy, just totally decimate small business as well without government intervention. And the big capitalists would essentially become the masters of society. If government was shrunk down to the size of a pea, well, then the big capitalist would just command everything. They would have no regulatory force whatsoever. And what I think Richard Mayberry would see happen is, without this regulatory force, the the greedy nature of capitalism will just cannibalize this country. You would have giant monopolies stabbing other giant monopolies in the back. You would have trade wars. You would have entire nations run by corporations. You would have entire people whose entire life is just devoted to making corporate profit, and they would earn corporate scrub and be forced to invest back into the corporation all the labor that they do. So, it's a pretty barbaric system in terms of the outcome. But what these libertarian guys do, like Richard Mayberry, is they wrap it up in a very nice package, a very patriotic package, and they say, you know what? The founding fathers loved the idea of a free market, and they loved the idea of a limited government. And so, because of that, because of what people thought, 300 years ago, it's okay to, just get rid of all regulations. And if you get lead in your local water supply, well, then you can just buy bottled water, bitch. And if the bottled water prices are too high, we'll just shop at a different shop that sells them for cheap. And if you get, poison from the plastic, the shitty plastic content in the bottled water, well then, the free market will ultimately not decide not to shop at that person's establishment. So it all works out. A few hundred people might have to die of food poisoning or water poisoning, but the free market is the ultimate regulator, folks. We don't need government's heavy hand to intervene. But of course, I think the libertarians ignore, like, the most obvious fact is that the government doesn't consist of people who are like dictators outright. They're elected. Now, I mean, we could talk about the influence of capital on those elections and how elections in a capitalist system are ultimately defunct and corrupt. But Richard Mayberry, of course, doesn't have a problem with elections in a capitalist system. He thinks they would work better in a capitalist system than in a socialist system. Pretty laughable, but I mean, then again, so is pretty much everything these libertarians say once you really sort of examine it with any kind of historical context. I mean, after all, libertarian economic principles had been tried and applied in the third world, and especially in Central and South America, largely as a as a result of U.S. imperialism. One case that comes to my mind immediately is Augusto Pinochet and his role as dictator of Chile for however many years. So, Richard Mayberry, I mean, even though he criticizes imperialism, I don't think he understands why the economic conditions of capitalism that put imperialism on the table. He just blames it on, like, I don't even know. Like greed. He says he's against the big greedy capitalists and the monopolies, but he wants to limit government's role to like curb that. He wants to just ditch out the democratic process and let the free market run everything. But of course, the free market isn't free for everybody. It might be free for the big capitalists, but for everybody else, it means slavery. It means servitude. It means you'll take what you're given by the free market and you'll like it. So that was my introduction to Richard Mayberry. Obviously, young Dankey has become wise and jaded over his short time on this earth, and he has learned, he has seen through the libertarian bootlicking ways of Richard Mayberry. But then there are other folks like this guy, Mr. Dapperton, who has 120,000 subscribers, and he's pretty much the modern day equivalent to Richard Mayberry. He's not as well spoken, but he makes topical videos like the new Joker is a woke socialist terrorist. Because the only thing we have to see about this movie is a fucking commercial. We don't know jack diddly shit about this movie, diddly doodly do, but this idiot chud is going around saying it's like socialist propaganda. I don't know what these chuds have. They're all just a bunch of dorks, ladies and gentlemen. They're just so concerned with like comic books and Star Wars and video games. And I like all those things. Except for maybe comic books, but I mean I'm a weeaboo. So I've got that going for me. Ladies, line up, get in line. But that's beside the point. You don't see me going around bitching and whining about fucking Star Wars. I'm trying to make videos that matter, dude. This guy's just churning out ass rape. He's just churning out bullshit. I saw he made a video about no bullshit exposed, so that might be something cool. I always do like to see the right wing cannibalize each other because they're horrible people. But you can see here he's got a bunch of hot takes. I kind of want to check out this tier list of libertarian philosophers. I'm not familiar with a great many of them, but of course I do know Richard Mayberry, and I would be interested to see if he actually appears on this list. Where is the guy? Where's our boy Richard M, dude? You're not a real fucking bro until you've heard Richard M. I'm not seeing him. This guy doesn't know, dude. This guy, Dapperton, dude, you're a fake libertarian. Y'all cowards don't even read Richard Mayberry. So yeah, the guy is a chud. He's churning out chud tier materials. Um, yeah, and he's got 120,000 subscribers. So yeah, I guess libertarianism is alive and well in 2019, but it sort of has been absorbed by the greater alt-right like chud movement and kind of marginalized, but not really. It's just, they're always going to call themselves something different. I think libertarianism's pretty cringe. Ancap is in. Identitarian, Liberty Boys. I think they should call themselves the Liberty Boys or the Liberty Lads. The Liberty Lads would be a pretty cool name. But yeah, that's libertarianism. It's cringy. It's a shitty fucking philosophy. If you want to see real quality libertarian cringe, go to this fellow's channel. This is Sam Cedar Majority Report, and he takes live calls of libertarianism, libertarians calling in, and it's just hilarious. He's got people arguing about slaves, saying slavery is probably a good thing, and just crazy shit like that. So yeah, check him out.